Sometimes in life, our heads produce thoughts that we should repress. Making this video was probably one of them. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen on DS is really not good. And I say that having huge nostalgia for the game. Unlike the War for Cybertron video I did, I'll only be going over the Decepticons version of the game, because I really don't think I could sit through another 3 hours of this. Transformers Revenge of the Fallen on DS is a loose adaptation of the movie. I'm talking Earthrise Optimus style loose. So I guess since we're here already, I'll give a quick run through of the plot. We pick up roughly after the events of the first Transformers movie from 2007. Megatron is dead, the Allspark destroyed, and the Autobots are now in an alliance with humanity. Starscream has assumed the role of Decepticon commander, subservient to only the Fallen. While out on a mission, Starscream receives a distress signal of a protoform landing nearby. He heads to the landing site, as does a nearby Optimus Prime. The two battle over the protoform's allegiance, but the protoform reveals himself to be a Decepticon. Under the guidance of Soundwave, the protoform, who has now become the main player character, scans a vehicle and joins the Decepticon ranks. From there, the Decepticons plan and enact several tactical strikes against the Autobots and humanity, destroying supply chains and energy sources, eventually leading to the retrieval of the last Allspark shard and Megatron's corpse. They use the shard to revive him and await the Fallen's arrival on Earth. The Fallen tells his men that they are to use a secret harvester to harness power from the sun. To locate this harvester, however, a Seeker must be found. After a heated battle on board an aircraft carrier, the last living Seeker, Jetfire, is interrogated for info and disposed of. As the Decepticons make their way to Egypt for the harvester, they are countered by Autobots. Thus, the rookie protoform is sent on a suicide mission to fight Optimus Prime and activate the harvester. Against all odds, the Autobot leader falls, with humanity soon to as well. The rookie is promoted to be the Fallen's right-hand man. However, with both Starscream and Megatron vying for their spots back, it seems a precarious position. See what I mean by loose? Really the only thing shared between this plot and the one in the movie is Megatron's revival and the Harvester. Out of all the DS games, this one absolutely has the weakest plot, partially because it's based on a movie that barely has one either. It just doesn't do enough. It feels disjointed since it really only begins once Megatron's revived. But by then, the game is maybe half over or more. Before that, Soundwave just goes, "Oh yeah, this place is important, blow it up." We also barely get a view at the other side. We never hear from humans and we get maybe 8 lines of dialogue from Autobots. You only ever see 3 of the main Autobot cast too. It's just Prime, Ironhide and Bumblebee, with a very quick cameo from Jetfire too. Besides our antagonists being non-existent, so are our protagonists. Although some of the Decepticons do get a few lines of dialogue and there's some fun banter at the start. The vast majority of the text you'll be reading will be straightforward mission briefings from either Soundwave or sometimes the Fallen. The voice acting when there is some is pretty good, though it can only make up for so much. Other than the typical power struggle between Starscream and Megatron being added at the last second, no characters really have any notable interactions or traits. But let's be fair, great character work is probably not to be expected from a DS movie tie-in. Unfortunately, every other aspect of the game, bar the graphics, suffers as well. The game is just boring. It's made up of incredibly formulaic short missions, many of which have time limits, and oh boy are some of these insane. I never beat this game back in the day because of these, and they're there from the very start to the very end. Timers fucking everywhere. Most of the levels boil down to collecting energon, scanning objects or killing waves of enemies, and there are very few interesting set pieces or bosses. In fact, there are only 3 bosses against actual named Autobots, and they're all the same fight. You shoot them, they hide behind a force field and wait for you to be hit by an airstrike, which, may I say, is very unlike an Autobot. Then, you have to kill an enemy and scan a thing to redirect the strike. Oh, and they squeezed a time limit in there for good luck. Rinse, repeat, there's your bosses. None of them even move, they just stand and shoot while you strafe and shoot, which, by God, you'll be doing a lot of. This game requires you to only shoot enemies, really. Melee is practically useless. By the time you make it to an enemy to punch them, they've already killed you. So you'd better get used to this. Lock on, begin shooting, walk side to side, and occasionally jump. That's your whole experience. Most missions don't require you to transform, so there's almost no point to it, which, you know, it's only the fucking selling point of the franchise. When you do have to transform, it's only to move faster since you probably have a time limit, and it certainly won't be to attack enemies, because in your vehicle mode, you don't have any way of attacking. That is, until you play as Megatron, but that's only 2 or 3 levels at most, and they aren't even main ones. Actually, I lied, there is another instance that you'll transform, and that's to run away and heal, because these enemies are terrible. The typical Autobots you run into are either pitifully easy, like these fire engine guys who barely attack, or they're these guys who you can't get close to, because even at the start they deal way too much damage. Other non-Autobot enemies include trucks, helicopters, tanks, and javelin turrets. These little bastards are the bane of my existence. They fire invisible, unavoidable missiles. You just have to tank their hits until you can kill them, then retreat, heal, and go kill the next. That's only how the main missions go as your player character though. What about the other missions where you play as real Decepticons from the movie? Well, ever wanted to race Sideswipe as Barricade? Or collect Energon as Barricade? Or collect Energon as Sideswipe? Or as Barricade again? I find no enjoyment in these missions. They exist solely to pad out the game, and they're the only time you get to play as actual Decepticons. Well, there are the Starscream missions too, I guess. Yeah, beyond the normal 3D objective-based shoot-em-up style, there exist flying missions as Starscream. They have you constantly in motion, blowing up planes, turrets, boats, and turrets on boats, all around different sea-based landmarks, like an oil rig, which maybe is a good callback to the first episode of G1, but I'm not sure I want to give them that much credit. Playing these levels ranges from piss easy, to frustrating, to just plain boring. Take for instance the one where you have to defend the other Decepticons while they resurrect Megatron. The first part is simple enough, but then suddenly you get thrust into ensuring your comrades don't die without any way of telling what's actually killing them. You just have to frantically shoot everything and hope you wipe them all out fast enough. But then, once you've done that, the level just becomes waiting around for enemies to spawn for several minutes, and when they do spawn, they die instantly and do nothing. The point I'm getting to is that these levels could be cut, and the game wouldn't suffer in the slightest. Before I finish on gameplay though, I want to very quickly touch on jumping. For whatever reason, I'm not sure, the game suffers from severe input delay, specifically when hitting the jump button. This, on top of the janky movement controls, makes sections like the platforming before the Optimus Prime fight stupidly annoying, because nothing happens when you want it to. And on the topic of that, why is the checkpoint before the cutscene? Every time you die, you have to skip through the whole cutscene to get to gameplay. Before we continue, I do want to point out I'm not trying to be mean to the devs. Vicarious Visions did great with the other DS Transformers games, and I'm sure there are probably reasons for this game suffering where the others didn't. Likely there were issues stemming from the strenuous production of the actual movie it's adapting. That being said, I have more to complain about, mostly being the way missions are selected by and presented to the player. The game has a world map screen. Makes sense given the global scale of the levels. Each level has an icon on the map where it takes place. My problems begin though with the fact that when you beat a mission, its icon disappears until you beat the rest of the missions in that section. So if you missed a collectible and you want to go back and grab it, you have to play a bunch more missions to have a shot at getting it again. My other gripe is this. When you tap on a level icon, you get presented with 2 choices. The main mission and then a greyed out challenge that unlocks when you beat the main one. Sounds good, right? Optional challenges to test your skills for when you beat the game. Except, no. These challenges aren't optional. You have to beat them to progress. So then just call them missions. They don't really have any more or less plot than the typical mission in the game, so what's the problem? Setting the missions aside, there's another part of the game I'd like to talk about. At the beginning you play as a protoform, a transformer without a vehicle mode. So you get to scan some vehicles and then pick one to use as your alt mode for the rest of the game. Pretty fun feature. But it doesn't actually just impact your character's shape and size, it also changes their stats. And this is one of the things I will praise the game for. Your character is pretty customisable. You have 5, maybe 6 stats that you can upgrade with the Energon that you collect during your missions. Being able to power up your character makes things a whole lot more bearable later on. And it doesn't end with just giving your character a larger health bar. Throughout levels there are these little... I'm not sure what they are, but they look awesome. And when you scan them it gives you different items. Head back to the medical bay tab and you can start switching these out for different stat boosts. And weapons. Oh yeah, finally you get to be the one using that evil grenade launcher, not the enemies. There are a decent amount of weapons to unlock, and although some are certainly more useful than others, it's great to have options. Keeping with praises for the game, there's a brilliant selection of environments, with quite a few cityscapes from different countries, along with deserts, factories, military bases and missile silos. It's maybe the only part of the game where it really shines. All these settings look great fidelity wise as well. I can't say the music really stands out, because my audio bugged so I didn't really hear it. From what I remember playing it on the DS originally though, there weren't any tracks that stood out except for the main menu theme. I really hope this game would be more enjoyable to return to, and maybe I was misremembering it. There was more to it than I thought, but it just lacks any really redeeming qualities. The good features that are there only help to minimise a few of the really terrible parts. I wouldn't say there's anything in here worth playing it for, so I don't recommend it. If you made it this far, thank you very much for watching. Hit the buttons below, and goodbye.